It's amazing that Darwin wrote this book when he was in his 90s. I think he started when he was 92. So it's a distillation of 70 years of, 100% focus on Baba. And and he took that journey with Baba for decades and decades, and a lot of this is what he saw along the way. Is very helpful because many of us have gone through and are going through the same things that he did.
Darwin used to comment frequently where he would stand on certain spots in the center and say they were special funnels to Baba's grace. Have you any stories about him telling you about that?
Yeah, I mean, certain fountains, he said fountains of energy would pour into certain places on the center. And we would go around and he would show us where those were. One in Baba's garden, and one around the barn, one by the lagoon cabin. And, Baba said that the center, every square inch of the center was filled with the love of Narina, Elizabeth, and Darwin. But like I say, and then we kind of gather around and try to feel that insurge of energy from those places. Yeah. I'll mention one thing. I've mentioned it before, but some of you may not have heard, but when Darwin was at the center in 1948, he was trying to divert the swamp waters, to irrigate them out of the center. And at the end of the day, he would go to the place where Baba's house was to be built. It was just staked out. And there was one place on the bluff he would sit and look over toward India. This is 1948. And think of Baba. And he felt like there was a very special connection. I mean, he felt that Baba was receiving. But, one part of him wasn't 100% certain. But then 4 years later, 1952, when Baba came to the center, one day during that visit, Baba called for Darwin's and Jean and the kids to come over to his house. So when they got there, Baba was at the screen porch, opened it and let them into his house. And as Darwin was the last one, and as Darwin was going up the steps, Baba pointed to that place on the bluff. And Darwin said, "Baba, you're reminding me how I used to come here and think of you." So that confirmed that what he thought, what he was feeling inwardly, Baba confirmed that. And he said Baba just had a bland look on his face, like there's nothing. So beautiful. So all of these, and Darwin used to say, all these inner experiences that we feel we're having with Baba, a closeness or his presence, don't be too doubtful of them. Believe that you are feeling him. I mean, he's right in front of us, loving and adoring us, even if we don't see it or feel it. He's always there. Darwin was it was very important never to think that Baba isn't there in front of you, loving and adoring you, no matter what. Of course, we do things and we feel like, we want to hide from Baba, but Baba, there's the unconditional love from Baba, and he never turns away. That was something that Darwin really affirmed again and again, both he and Jean. So, yeah.
Jeff, is there a suggestion for tapping into that? Because I'm just feeling a lot of fear with this virus.
Yeah, what I do when I have things like that, share that fear with him Imagine, I mean, this is what I do and what I gathered from Darwin. Imagine within that Baba's in front of you, and imagine, put your focus on that fear and imagine that it is flowing toward Baba. Give it to him. It's not going to instantly go away. You're giving one layer of the fear. And there's a layer behind it that looks like the fear you just gave him, but actually it's one layer less. But it's an opportunity to unload the fear in yourself to make more room for Baba to live in you. That's the way, that's what I gathered from Erich and Darwin. In other words, that fear is good in that it's in you. This situation is bringing it up so that you're conscious of it. Put your awareness on that and imagine that it's flowing toward Baba. And he loves that type of thing. Darwin used to say, we'd like to give him a bouquet of roses, but you know, not some dandelions. Give him the dandelions.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the approach that I kind of inherited.
I was wondering if you don't mind, there was a quote you told me one time, and it starts out something like, "None but the lovers are slain."
Oh.
And it was written by a guy who owned a fort or something. He worked at the fort. He owned a fort. I don't know.
No, he was a saint.
Okay.
The whole story about him that Erich tells, but his name was Sarmad. And this is the line. In the battle of love, none but the lovers are slain. The weak and wicked escape from injury. O you who are the true lover, flee not from the battle. Those who are not killed are dead to love.
Thank you.
That was, I think that's the quote you were.
That's it. Yeah. Saint Armand.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Dead to love?
Yeah. Those who are not killed are dead to love. Meaning they're not aware of it. I mean, those who are not killed are dead to love. Those who are awake to love, they get killed. Well, if there isn't anything to start, should we begin with a moment of silence?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, Baba. So, this is the kind of routine. The format is that Angela will randomly pick people to read a subchapter, and we're on page.
We're on page 28.
We're on page 28. And you can read or you can pass. Feel free to decline. And I wanted to say, I don't know, I only see 4 people at a time unless I do something. Maybe I need to go up to gallery, right?
Yes.
Oh, good. Wow. Anyway, I want to just say that, you know, I'm very touched by how beautifully and clearly you talk about your inner life with Baba. I mean, it's incredible. And I mean, that's all because you're experiencing these things. So that's lovely. So I can say it's very touching. And now, one thing that I wanted to mention is last week we talked about, it came up where Baba says, you know, turn toward the light and the shadows will be behind you. Now, a number of you kind of favor that approach. you know, where you're remembering Baba and everything is Baba, you're saying his name and keep your focus on him. And there are others like myself who have to, over the years, I've had to extract myself from the darkness in order to be free enough to see the light, to feel Baba's presence. So this Darwin's book talks about both themes, the theme of turning to Baba and staying in the light, and also working with the darkness, the subconscious, the forces impelling things within us, and trying to work through some of those so that we are free enough to turn to Baba and surrender more and more. So, and there are people that are do a mixture of both of those methods. So that I've seen that happen over the last few weeks, different approaches there. And so anyway, let's see if there's anything else I might say. Some people, of course, would like to move along a little faster with, subchapter by subchapter. Others want to kind of expand and explore things. So we just have to kind of keep a balance between those, because we've got about maybe 75 people here, and we have to kind of cover all of you. So anyway, let's begin.
Okay, good. The light of grace. A great many ambient factors are involved in the withdrawal of consciousness from the dual realm, and it would be impossible to mention all of them. However, one of the most important factors is the grace of the Master. Divine grace is a power or force of light that can dispel and even altogether eliminate ignorance or falsehood. It can dissolve darkness, erroneous thoughts, and complexes within one's consciousness. Sometimes we have to direct the light of grace into various areas within our own hearts. In other words, at the subjective level. By this, I mean that instead of assuming that grace will take care of everything, we are actively accepting the intervention of divine grace as a great light that will dispel the darkness within us. If one is conscious of the heart center, then one hopefully has enough inner vision to realize where one needs help. And one can oversee to a certain extent the working of grace in helping one's own heart center by shining the light of truth on it. It is like directing a light onto a particular dark spot, which then makes it light. However, it is difficult to generalize because as individuals, we have our own individual dark and light spots, and they are not all the same. The Master reveals to us as individuals where we can clean out our Augean, sorry for the pronunciation, stables, a little here, a little there. In his own way, he reveals where our mistaken analysis and judgment have led us to wrong conclusions. At least that has been my experience. I find that when I feel a surging force, the energy of divine grace, I am able to direct it where it is needed the most. It is like a continuous gift, but it needs direction in order to counteract specific limitations and bindings.
Beautiful. Any comments about that? Or I would be interested in how that approach, where you're working, like Darwin says, you're working from your heart center, which has opened, where you're working on the dark, some of the complexes in you, as well as, I would say, says the light spots, like the emerging of the divine qualities in you, but working at that inner level. Can anybody can say how that plays out in their life?
I was just reflecting on my own experience where if I have done something that I feel is wicked or nasty or yucky, or I don't like that I've done, it's very easy for me to judge myself. And I notice that I'm judging myself because I'm very much in my head and not really open to relationship with myself or with Baba or others. But there are times that when I will feel my recognition of that, or moments where I'm inspired to do so, I can really bring my, to put it bluntly, use that grace to help open my heart and bring my awareness back down to more of my heart center. So I'm in more of a place of feeling and more open relationship with others, and willing to be softer with myself or others from that space. So I recognize that aspect of
Yeah.
my running out.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's exactly.
And Heidi?
Yeah, this piece is real special to me because it's actually a thing where you have to allow, I guess that's the word, allow Baba's grace, which is ever flowing, to come to you, and then allow yourself to receive it, no matter what you feel about yourself, as Jake, you were saying, or no matter what you're going through. And it seems so simple, but it is, but then it's not. If you practice it, it's there for you. But that's the amazing part, no matter what. You know, sometimes I feel like I haven't done enough, or I've disappointed Baba, or I haven't been truthful, or I haven't been as natural as I want to be, and it doesn't matter. It's just daily, every day, if we can recognize that Baba's grace is always flowing to us, and we give ourselves permission to receive it. We don't limit ourselves, and we don't limit Baba. I think that was a theme in some of the other previous chapters. So.
Yeah. Yeah, he's describing how to deal with certain specific internal things, either blocks or complexes, or even, as he says, the beautiful qualities that are starting to emerge in us, and using that space in the heart to work with Baba through those things.
And to direct it, feeling the flow of grace and to direct it.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
To be able to do that.
And Jack?
Yeah, for me, it's how I handle confrontation, and how I feel about the act, whether I was a slave to it, or whether or not I just stayed back from it, or whatever the situation is. And as Marge knows, that my hardest job is to say, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Well done. And Patty, go ahead.
Oh, well, this is a complex message for me, in the realm of my willingness. My willingness is there to witness and to accept the process of the grace. Much easier, I think I'm referring to what Jake was saying too, the process of letting the witness, the small self, seeing even the judgment, even the criticism, but letting that melt through the grace. I mean, it's kind of a wordless subject for me to put out, but it appears arising through the thoughts that the grace, the presence of the grace is so strong now, right now, more than I've ever felt it. And the isolation has actually intensified the awareness arising that we have this incredible opportunity. I don't know about directing the grace. I don't know about that at all. But the allowing of the humanness, the embodiment, the soul, the source to work out through our releasing either its criticisms or judgments or anger. And I'll agree, yes, I'm sorry, forgiveness is there 100%. And the forgiveness is always, to me, in myself. It usually isn't out there. So I'm just feeling very deeply this particular time, and thank goodness for a puppy to bring you so close to the present moment. So and the joy and the laughter. So yeah, this is beautiful, and I think the darkness is to be seen, is to be experienced and felt so deeply that the heart is flooded with the compassion right now, because clearly it's present. Jai Baba.
Yeah, Jai Baba, beautiful.
Jai Baba.
Jim Oppenheim?
There we go. What came up for me when we read this was it's like it's a conversation where when you're talking about directing, the way I related that was I don't feel I have the wherefore or the saintliness to be able to direct it in a wise way without any help with Baba. So to me, what it felt like is like it's as if Baba was in there putting with his surgical light, pointing up things that and making my awareness being aware of those things, and then turning around and being able to being able to surrender to Baba, saying, yes, I want your help, guide me, show me that light so you can show me how I need to address that, or what to do or not do, or how to approach it. And it's a continual conversation back and forth, because there would be the next step, but then you go, well, now what? I mean, I don't have the service manual for this particular thing. I haven't read through the whole thing yet. I don't have a copy of it. You're going to have to help me here. And again, it's another, shine the light, and then being able to surrender to that, to be able to have that ability to even follow, to be able to direct it. So, but it's a direction with your hand in Baba's hand. So he's really doing the direction. Does that, you get that?
Yeah. No, there's all these different ways that are very similar.
Duke, go ahead.
Yeah, what strikes me about this book, something about its uniqueness, is the emphasis on effort. And when I first saw this book, as I mentioned earlier, before our formal meeting started, Jeff sent us this book some years ago. And what struck me about it right away was the word effort in the title. And it's something consistent throughout the book, it seems to me, that every subchapter resonates with this idea of making an effort, always making an effort. This particular subchapter, it's interesting to note that the title of the subchapter, it seems to me, it's interesting, is The Light of Grace. Yet the chapter is just as much about effort as it is about grace. For example, Darwin uses two very active verbs in this chapter. The one that you guys have already mentioned, the verb to direct. And there's also the verb to dispel. And he uses those two verbs more than once in this subchapter. And it seems to me that what these two words are reminding us, if you will, to do is to make the effort. Sure, as some of you guys have pointed out, we really don't know how to direct or how to dispel without a certain degree of guidance from Baba. But I think what Baba is asking us to, what Darwin is suggesting Baba wants us to do, is to at least make the effort. And that's where it seems to me every subchapter goes back to that title, that duality in making the effort in order to allow grace to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, Baba said, if we make the effort, it draws his grace too. That's a fact. Yeah. But
Gabriella.
eventually
Oh,
becomes
sorry.
effortless effort. I mean, Darwin said eventually it becomes effortless effort. It's something you thoroughly enjoy doing.
Jay Baba. I today took a walk with a friend, and there's this beautiful field, and we stopped and went into silence for 10 minutes or so, and so much bliss, so much of this divine grace was just pouring in. The wind was blowing, and the smell of the field, and I agree. I've never felt so much awareness, so much beauty pouring in. And then as it was happening, I remember Darwin saying something like, you can have bliss, but you want God. Because I was starting to feel so much bliss. So I just thought this thought, or it came through, that Darwin said, to die to yourself. Let me die to myself. And so I just thought that, and immediately everything started to contract. And but it was okay, but I think I believe that Baba wouldn't want us to get bored. It's never the same. Like every time I close my eyes or feel my connection to Baba, something different comes through. And this time it was that memory of that little thing that Darwin had said. It helped me to sort of go into the darkness from that beautiful light to go, I'm dying to myself, which means you couldn't go more into the dark. You're bringing all that light into the dark. And then I remembered another phrase where he said something to the effect of, let Baba be born in you. I'm not...
Let Baba what?
Be born in you.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying exactly right, but that's what came through. And so it was very, very beautiful, and I felt it expand again. So I think that maybe that's the thing. I wasn't directing it consciously, but the little suggestions that came through were perhaps Baba's help and leading me, so that I was directing it somewhere. I wasn't just, because it was so lovely, nothing wrong with that, but I was able to take it to a deeper place, I think, or Baba helped me to do that.
Yeah.
I'm about halfway through Effort and Grace right now, and don't mind me, I just woke up and getting my Zoom legs on. I'm not really great with technology, but I'm about halfway through, and I realized reading this section, it's the one I have bracketed the most. And I remember one time, I think it was Adi K in one of his recordings mentioning about taking Baba's name in order to, for example, what it does is when you're cleaning a room, it's like getting buckets and throwing it all over, and little by little it dissolves the particles. But what I really appreciate is somebody's mentioning surgical, because to me this talks about a surgical approach, because I notice with myself, if I have a really deep-seated issue I need to work with, it takes that surgical approach in order to heal that place. And to me, I do feel I need a lot of work on my heart center. And I have done, I don't know, one thing I'd ask to hear about is is if anyone has experience with a deliberate approach, literally making time to sit down with visualizations in order to do the work. And I'll stop at that. It's just that paragraph on the left page was the most bracketed I have in a book so far. It's the one I really deeply appreciated, being very specific about the work. And I pass. Thanks.
Yeah, we could. That's a wider subject that may get answered over time as we go along. But that surgical approach and finding something, an impediment in you that's blocking the flow of love, and how to how to go after that and dispel it using the grace that's flowing through. I think we'll come back to that.
A fearless and moral inventory of ourselves is one way to really look at the things that are blocking us and work through them. The 12 steps. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent approach.
Anyways, what I was going to respond to is going way back to what Patty had mentioned. And right now, we're just at such an incredible time. I mean, it pulsates with what's happening on the earth right now. And I just wanted to go back to the beginning paragraph and read, however, one of the most important factors is the grace of the Master. Divine grace is a power or force of light that can dispel and even altogether eliminate ignorance or falsehood. It can dissolve darkness, erroneous thoughts, and complexes within one's consciousness. It reminds me a little bit of that statement Baba made about love. There is no darkness it cannot dispel. And what feels to me right now at this time, it feels like the word Baba uses, he's come to awaken. There's nothing about words that just feels like an enormous awakening of love that's happening on this earth right now.
Yep.
Love through grace. It is the Master's inestimable great gift of grace, when we are aware of it, that inspires our own love for him and more. And this awakens more insight, intuition, and inner level awareness, and even awakens us to the prospect of actually merging by degrees with his consciousness. But our love for him should be without wanting and without bargaining. We love him just because he is most lovable. His loving force of grace is an essential part of our inner awareness, and we are being sustained by grace. As individuals, we will find salvation through grace, not through our merits, and thereby, as we clear out the veils, we can rest in a deep inner state of peace and harmony, because we will see that we already have security and sanctuary in the Master's love and grace. For that, of course, we are very grateful.
Beautiful. Any comments in reference to that? You know, let me just say here, my early years with Baba, I loved him for my sake. He was going to help me with the mess of my life. And it's been, you know, as years go on, I've loved him more for his sake alone, because he is most, as Darwin says, most lovable. But I started out with a rather selfish approach.
The only thought was just thank God for his grace and his lovability. Otherwise, we'd be lost. That's it.
Yeah.
And Dartha.
Me.
Tom.
Yeah. I'm going back to Jeff's comments. I started out being a scientist with kind of a logical assessment of Baba loving. And the more I did it, the more it felt logical for me. And then completely sensible. And I feel like I'm awash but still not out of the struggle. I mean, I watch on my persona has understood it, but I haven't, my actions haven't quite come to grips.
Your heart.
My heart. So when we were talking about the sanskaras, the impression I got, for example, from Craig Graff and another source I don't remember, it's something you work at. It's don't day by day, you don't see it. If you stop a day, you might slip back. But the continuous effort will eventually dissolve into a real love.
Yeah. And you'll no longer be in New Jersey. You'll be everywhere.
I can't wait.
Here we go. Stopping the veil-making machine. In Meher Baba's omnipotence and care for humanity, his purpose is to raise the consciousness of everyone and everything in creation, and in particular of those who love him. So we have to be prepared to grow within his love. There is a biblical saying that, roughly paraphrased, says, "Unto whom much is given, much shall also be required." If we wish to draw closer to God, we must be prepared for further effacement and heart purification, an emptying of the heart of all of our sanskaric veils. This can be very extensive because it challenges the general paradigm that is accepted by everyone. The fundamental misconceptions that the illusory creation is based upon and the spiritual limitations we are brought up with. So stopping the veil-making machine is not a matter of armchair theorizing. It is work that is up to us to do. Growing pains are involved as we work our way toward God. But if we finally get fed up with running around the reincarnation wheel time and again, we are going, we are going to expedite the process. Otherwise, if we just wait for freedom from the need to reincarnate to happen automatically, it could take ages. Even if we still want to come back to serve the avatar, we want to be able to provide a clear consciousness for his use. But we have to cease limiting ourselves. We have to stop thinking, "Oh, this can't happen. I won't have liberation for many, many lives." With God, all things are possible. He can actually do anything. Meher Baba, as the avatar, is the incarnation of divine love, and he is above all laws. Nothing can confine or limit divine love, and no law, no set pattern or precedent can restrict him. He is our best friend, and not only our best friend, but also our ally, working with each one of us. He has consummate understanding and insight into the sanskaras of each individual, and he really does work within us to expedite our freedom of consciousness. I feel that this is what is going on full strength now that he has dropped his physical body. So as we work to sort out all this sanskaric determination that is impelling us to reincarnate, and we open ourselves to the Master's grace, he is right there with us, confirming and consolidating our previously acquired intuitions and perceptions, and precipitating our consciousness to higher and freer levels. These levels or layers of consciousness unfold in an orderly progression of 7 steps, from instinct to reason, then inspiration, intuition, insight, illumination, and finally realization of God. In other words, these levels comprise the steps Baba takes us through as he confirms and consolidates the fruits of our efforts. Meher Baba means to liberate us. So let us not inhibit his work by saying, I can't do that now, I'm bound with all these things. And it's going to take ages to grow out of them. Let us not wait for 1,000 years more. It could happen at any time. I feel that we have to accept and believe in the highest possibility in this incarnation. We should not procrastinate, not put it off for another incarnation. The primary point is that we are spirit, and we need to become conscious of it. To do this, we have to stop the veil-making machine and dare to forge ahead to form a friendship with the Master within. This is something we can constantly work on. Otherwise, we prolong suffering, which is what I believe incarnation really is.
Any comments about that?
Angela, this is Larice on a phone. Will you put me in the queue?
Just go ahead.
Oh, great. Hi, everyone. This is Larice from North Carolina, Jai Baba.
Yeah.
So the phrase that stuck out for me was the heart being cleared of sanskaras. I want to tell a little story of a time in India. So I think it was 2012. One day I was, at RT, and I heard Baba say, take my name, it was morning RT, take my name all day long. So I really consciously took his name all day long. Like, I can't remember when I'm in my regular life, but, I was on pilgrimage. So the next morning, and I did it a lot. And then the next morning, I got up and I went to clean the samadhi. And I was standing in line, and I heard Baba say, your heart is closed. Take my name. So I started taking his name, and it was like I saw Baba, Baba, Baba on little ticker tape or something, going through all of my vessels, from my heart out into all my vessels, all these Baba, 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 Baba. And I started, I was 5th or 6th back in line, and I hadn't gotten there early, so I was kind of later in. And I started buzzing with love. I was my body was buzzing. And so I go in the samadhi, and my turn that time, there was 4 of us in there. We were lowering one of the samadhi cloths. And I was on the left side when you walk in on the far back. And there was an Indian woman on the same left side in the front. And you take your little corner, and then you all lower it and say, Avatar Mary Baba Ki Jai. Well, she had her right hand on the corner, and she had her left hand all the way over on my corner, right next to my hand. And all of a sudden, I went, in my mind, I was like, get your hand away from my corner. And I was flipping out, I was in a rage that her hand was over on my corner. And it was this is my corner. And so, we lower the samadhi cloth, and I go outside, and I literally put my hands up in the air, and I said, look what you've got, Baba. Look who you're dealing with. And I just said a prayer then, I said it to Baba, and I said a prayer, and I realized this woman didn't know either way, right? She was just in there, and so I prayed for her, and I went back around and, did another something, and then went back to the, after RT went back, and sometime during that day, and this is why it's so great to be with other lovers on pilgrimage, because we all help each other. So I started telling this story, and someone was like, Larice, if he's going to clear stuff out of your heart, he's got to clear the rage out also. And, you know, I grew up in an alcoholic home, and both my mother and father were rageaholics, and I received so much rage. And it was in my heart too, you know? So then I was like, oh, instead of feeling like, oh, I'm a failure, you know, it's like, oh, where else should the rage go but in the samadhi, right? You know, it was perfect. And that woman, you know, Baba works through that woman to release that rage in the samadhi. So then I was like, oh, what a gift. So anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. You know, one thing that Darwin said that surprises, this is back in the early 70s, he said, you know, you're talking about the rage, you know, emptying that, emptying ourselves, emptying this impressions out of the heart. He said, even the good takes up space. We were very surprised. Even the good. Love is the only thing that doesn't take up space. So unloading the good is part of the process, not just giving our negative side, but also our very positive side. To empty the warehouse of everything, the good and the bad.
Now, I wanted to see if they could reread the part where they list the 7 stages. There's 7 steps, and I wanted to just hear those again.
These levels or layers of consciousness unfold in an orderly progression of 7 steps, from instinct to reason, then inspiration, intuition, insight, illumination, and finally realization of God. In other words, these levels comprise the steps Baba takes us through as he confirms and consolidates the fruits of our efforts.
Yeah, that's great. Paul Fusco, you had your hand up?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Paulie, we hear you.
All right, great. Yeah. So back in, I don't know if it was 2012, whatever it was, when we started reading Effort and Grace, like a prayer had come to me that it was actually, I know the book is entitled Effort and Grace, but it came to me as grace and effort. That was the first thing. And then the prayer that came to me that I would say before I would start reading was, and if this helps anyone, but it was, "Oh God, please bestow your grace upon us. Fill our hearts with your unbounded love and give us the wisdom to act upon it. Allow us, Father, to find your will as our own."
Beautiful.
And that little prayer, as you start to read through the subchapters, to like everybody's point, the grace, when Baba comes to us, the grace is there. But as Darwin says, the awareness, wants the awareness, but then to act upon it.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, Jai Baba, I hope that helps.
Beautiful. Yeah. There's the line there, with God, all things are possible. And we asked Darwin, we kind of buy into a law of psychological cause and effect. It'll take so long for me to get over this grief. It'll take so long for me to get through this resentment. And Darwin said we buy into these kind of conventionally accepted periods, whereas it is possible to turn directly to Baba and unload a lot of this and be free much sooner. So, but it also takes faith in believing that with God all things are possible. And he used to stress that. Don't just believe what your mind tells you, how long it's going to take.
was just piggybacking on what Jeff's saying, what the thought just occurred to me says, and we have no idea how much work we've done in the past. Bob has us blindfolded. So, I mean, whatever one of the things I got hit with this was, not to be limited by our own impression of what we think it might be, when really we don't have any idea. It's we don't know how much long we've done or not done. So it's besides all that, even without the cause and effect conversation, God knows what he's going to do, the cause and effect. And if, it's his logic, not ours. So, his math, not our math.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
thing that in this last section that jumped out at me was when Baba says, or when Darwin says, when we open ourselves up to Baba's grace, he is right there with us. To me, that's the key to all kinds of solving all kinds of problems.
beautiful. Yep. So true.
All right. Chapter 6, it says, purifying our hearts. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And that's from Matthew 5:8. Through a refining process, we each are being fashioned into a temple on earth. And this process begins with identifying ourselves as timeless spirit and knowing that the truth of this can manifest in our lives. The inner path consists of stepping stones towards truth. And we move at the level of the spirit. We move towards God, towards Meher Baba, towards reality within by discarding the false. For we have to discard the false in order to experience the truth. As we move in the spirit and more light comes in, we experience upliftment, timelessness, and bliss. Instead of struggling with negative things, we accentuate the positive, love God more and more, and long for pure love, pure truth. The path also involves trying to find God within, trying to feel the presence of God, to feel the divine love, divine grace, and divine beauty within. The way is open to each one of us, and eventually every one of us, Baba says, will take that path. Thank you.
I wanted to ask what does to move at the level of the spirit? Anybody could speak to that. What does it mean to move at the level of the spirit? How would you describe or frame that? Because this is very much a part of what Darwin, one of the major themes of this book.
Fia, go ahead.
I think about this in terms of it's not happening on the gross or the necessarily even the conscious level. It moves at a level beyond thought. And so it's kind of, it comes from your intention and attention to, and that's where that effort is. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how I think about that it's not, it's outside of your, it's not something that like, oh, you do this and like, you see manifestate. I mean, maybe yes, eventually you see manifestations of the world, but that's all, not even tertiary. It's way down the line from the inner work. This is like, I mean, maybe this is earlier when Peter talked about specific methods, this thought occurred to me, and often I would have trouble associating finding those jagged bits in myself other than an emotion would come up or a feeling in my body or like anxiety, and spending the time to sit with that while focusing on Baba saying his name or kind of keeping that mind. And so I think about that happening on the level of the spirit as maintaining that focus in like here and here while I go through everything else.
Beautiful. Excellent. Anyone else to speak to that?
It's about first cause, and what that kind of means to me is instead of fretting over or putting so much energy into situations, I mean, they're, I think, useful to us to get through and move closer to Baba, but they aren't important. It's what our spirit is like learning through these things on the gross plane. So I just try to remember what the purpose of all of it is and think about the first cause is trying to get back to knowing who we are. And the things that happen, instead of focusing on, oh, how am I going to fix this or how am I going to get through this, focusing more on God and the purpose of the things that we're going through. Be clear, but that's it.
I like the innermost soundtrack that's going on with all these other soundtracks. Anyone else?
Alan, go ahead.
Yeah, so when I hear the words move at the level of the spirit, I think of self-effacement and also intuition. It's surrendering to Baba and being obedient to him. But he did say, even to the Mandali, it's impossible to be fully obedient to me. So we're sort of caught in this, like, well, we're in the world, but I think that self-effacement, like losing that attachment to all of the amazing things in this marketplace of life, and finally resting and relying on him fully, having rock-like faith in him, in everything, in every breath, which is close to impossible from where I'm at. Yeah, I mean, that's geez Louise, but yeah, that's what it means to me. Intuition, moving at the level of the spirit, just really surrendering to him again and again. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Paul Fusco?
Yeah, to actually piggyback right on to what Alan was saying, for me, moving with spirit is more of a listening than a doing. It's like a listening to the language of silence from a soul level, and listening and allowing that to dictate and moving from there.
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth?
Great comments. Yeah.
So I was thinking the very same thing the last two guys were thinking, that when I think of the level of the spirit, I think it's listening to the intuition, but more than just listening, it's paying attention. And sometimes this intuition comes up in forms of nudges, and the mind wants to discount them. So it's not only paying attention, but for example, if you're thinking of a friend and you're thinking, I need to write that person or I need to call, you may not know why, but invariably, if I do that, I find out something's gone wrong, they need something, whatever, there's some reason. But you have to trust that this nudging, this intuition is suggesting that you take an action. And the action may just be not responding to somebody if there is an altercation of some sort. I mean, it could be a wide range of things. So it's listening, paying attention, trying to become aware of the intuition and not discounting that. And also being aware of any self-deception, which I think is the hardest part. How do you know what is really intuition and what is a desire?
Well said, Elizabeth. Excellent.
And Heidi.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to mention that there's an Aretha Franklin song called Spirit in the Dark. And sometimes I need to go to music in all its venues, hardcore and then spiritually meditative music. It doesn't matter, but you're raising the vibrations. And for me, I need to do that in order to get in touch with the activity of spirit, Baba in me. And the last little paragraph on the previous chapter hits a real chord, a connecting chord here, because Darwin says the primary point is that we are spirit, we need to become conscious of it. To do this, we have to stop the veil-making machine and dare to forge ahead. Here's the clincher, to form a friendship with the master within.
Mm.
And that really got to me, because I remember times when I was an adolescent before I heard Baba's name, and I think Darwin spoke about this too, where I knew that God was within me and all around me. And there were times it was sporadic that I would know and feel God. And then there was times I would have great longing or feel abandoned even. But it's a process of that friendship. I just think this is so powerful. Unless you have a friendship with Baba within you, you really can't allow or open sometimes to trust that he's there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, beautiful.
Whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter. So anyway, but that song "Spirit in the Dark" is really good, and
Yeah.
the lyrics even say "move with the spirit." It makes you dance, and I think that helps you with getting in touch with that kind of special spirit.
And Jack, go ahead.
Yeah. The comments just remind me what Baba said, that we're here to unlearn. And unlearning for me, has been a process of being aware. And that awareness, as far as spirit is concerned, I think for me, taking on that awareness has meant a lot, because the last 50 years I've unlearned a hell of a lot. And now, in this particular pandemic time, it even comes back that much stronger in watching people do things that they normally don't do, and how they're coping with it. And there, as someone mentioned earlier in the time we've shared here, there is a real silence coming over the world. And I feel that very strongly. As you know, Marge said, I go out very early in the morning, even before dawn, and the silence is thunderous, really is. So that's what I want you to feel, if to go through it, to get into this kind of a spirit of things, of just being in the world but not out of it. I mean, it's a perfect time.
Yeah.
You don't have the distractions that you normally have. So anyway.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. Yeah.
Sure.
Gabriella?
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. So two quick things. One is when Jack just said, I was thinking that it was like in ancient times, like biblical times, when the shepherd was out with his flock, and there was so much less busyness in the world. The silence was so much greater, and the things that came of that time, what that was like. And now we're being pushed a little into that, to have more of that stillness. And the other was a thought before that, when I mentioned about to form a friendship with the master. I agree. I definitely felt that in my life. And when I first did hear about Baba, I remember I was dating David Silverman, and we'd go out And each bite I would eat, I would say, Baba, should I take this bite? And then I'd take it or not. He thought I was a little crazy, but I was doing this, building a friendship where Baba was with me in each thing I did. I haven't been like that in a long time, but it was a beautiful time with Baba.
Yeah. Lovely. All
Wow.
these beautiful things with Baba. Magnificent.
And Janet Jacobs?
I just have a question to differentiate a little bit between what you were saying, Jeff, that Darwin said about we have to give everything, the positive and the negative, to Baba, so that and how, what does Darwin mean at the end of, in the middle of that second paragraph? Instead of struggling with the negative, we accentuate the positive. And I know it says love God and all of that, but so how, there's a little bit of a conflict in my mind about accentuate the positive and what you were saying before that Darwin said.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, because you can say the positive is the good in us,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but love is greater than the good in us.
Mm-hmm.
So if you give away your good, you're going to get love in return. Good is a calculated action. You think about it and then you do it. Love is spontaneous. There's a line from Victor Hugo, the French novelist, that's very captures Baba's whole thing on this, where he says, virtue, as in the case of vice, is a calculated action, but love is not calculated. It wells up in the heart and expresses itself spontaneously.
Mm-hmm.
So ideally, we want to get to where love is the doer. And good is all right. I remember Erich saying, Jeff, way back in the 70s when I was, without any prelude or anything, he said, Jeff, the accumulation of virtue is not the goal. It's valuable up to a certain point, but then it's still calculated. I'm going to do this for so-and-so. I'm going to be good. I'm going to be, and love, it's hard to wait and let love come through spontaneously. And one of the things that blocks that spontaneity is our attachment to being good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, total sense. I appreciate that.
I would say I would say the first maybe 10 years of my 10 trips to India, Baba had me looking through a microscope at the difference between good and love. They're almost indistinguishable, but they are different. They come from a different place. What good comes from our bundle of conditioning, and love comes from the soul.
Yeah, I can feel that difference. But thank you for making it clearer. Helpful.
Very sweet. Daniel Stone, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking back to the question you asked Jeff about what does it mean to operate at the level of the spirit. And the first thing I started asking myself, well, what's the alternative to living at the level of the spirit? Like, what is not living at the level of the spirit? And I was, and reading what Darwin says here about instead of struggling with negative things, I assume that that's sort of like what he's talking about there. In a way, that's how he's contrasting it. But there's a quote from Baba that I wanted to share that I think sort of gets at this, and it's very much in keeping with what Alan and Thea said about intuition. Baba said, when you feel something is intuitive and you have no doubt about it, then know it is real. Passing doubtful thoughts and temporary emotional feelings should not be given importance. But when you feel it touches your heart, follow it. When it's from the mind, it is not intuition. So I feel like the whole realm of sort of mind, of temporary of thoughts, and really what he's talking about, temporary emotional feelings, he's just talking about kind of these sort of samskaric emotions that are just in reaction to our lives, that's not the level of spirit.
Right.
The level of spirit is when we go to the next level of our heart, or the next layer in our heart, to the intuition, and we live from that. I think that's what Bob is talking about when he talks about living from the level of spirit. One other thing I want to say also, and in the same quote, Baba talks about the stages, and he says, first there's intuition, then inspiration, then illumination, and finally realization. I don't really know what inspiration means, but Baba positions it differently from how Darwin does, just to say.
Yeah. Hey, Daniel, would you read that quote again from Baba?
Yeah. I'll read the whole quote. When you feel something is intuitive and you have no doubt about it, then know it is real. Passing doubtful thoughts and temporary emotional feelings should not be given importance. But when you feel it touches your heart, follow it. When it is from the mind, it is not intuition. Intuition means that which comes from the heart. In the divine path, first there's intuition, then inspiration, then illumination, and finally realization. If it touches your heart, follow it.
Beautiful. Yeah,
And Peter.
I would say one lovely thing is all that we're doing here is all inspired by Baba. You know, I mean, people wake up in the morning and, well, Baba, what do you want me to do? It's, where did that come from? I mean, that's all coming from him.
Yeah, I think I heard my name. Well, after hearing that last quote, I debate whether I should say anything. When I heard that last passage, what came to me was what Erich had said, make Meher Baba our constant companion, follow his wish, only say or do things, think and do things that we would do in his presence. There's one more thing, can't remember. I'll pass with that though. Thank you.
Yeah. Easier said than done.
Oh, I was about to say, yeah, I'm not there yet.
Yeah. No, good.
Ideal.
The divine chess game. It takes a while to realize how close we are to the spiritual path and how easy it is for us to get underway on this inner path. I feel that it is not a question of following a doctrine or merely accepting a belief, but a matter of working through our own special cloud of sanskaric veils consisting of our thoughts, feelings, and desires. In other words, it is not working with something out there, but working inwardly to disentangle our consciousness. It involves an awareness of where our attention is placed or where our longing is. Fortunately, we do not have to go into the Colosseum with the lions as the early Christians did. However, we are facing something far worse, our own desire nature. Minimizing the desire-ridden ego requires paying attention to countless trivialities, noticing small efforts we can be making constantly. I like to think in terms of a divine chess game. This is not a doctrine or a system, but rather the idea of devising ways to counteract the false claims of the ego. This divine chess game is the game of ourselves, and the object of the game is the checkbaiting of our false self. This involves trying to change our sanskaric impressions and eventually eliminating them altogether. Just as figures move about a chessboard to counteract a tricky opponent, we are making moves to counteract the sanskaric tendencies that have held us back all along the way. In adapting ourselves to each new inner situation that comes up, we have to strategize and plan several moves ahead. After all, in the midst of battle is not a good time for one to start planning a strategy. Each of us learns to predict what sets off strong reactions in ourselves and develops strategies that best counteract the energy tied up in our own sanskaras. We have to be on our toes to know what to do in each situation. For example, wanting embodies a lot of energy, and we can redirect or sublimate the energy tied up in our desire sanskaras by turning it into spiritual longing, perhaps simply by reading something inspirational. That would be an example of a chess move. Another counteracting chess move we can make is keeping in mind the fact that the world is merely illusion. Another one is thinking of self-effacement as something positive. Seemingly small inner moves like these mount up, and after a while they add up to a dramatic redirection of our inner forces. The whole thing amounts to the clearing or purifying of the heart center.
Beautiful.
This brings to mind going through a particularly thorny situation right now, and it kind of brings home and makes it real the necessity to do the strategy. Not just try to come up with something in the middle of the battle, but actually have that presence with Baba of like sitting down and coming up with strategy. You know, really, yeah. So.
Yeah.
And Alan, go ahead.
Yeah, there was my first time I went to the center in Myrtle Beach. I remember going into the barn, and there's something on the wall there that Baba said, and it was one of these lines. I don't think I'm getting it right, but he said something about like go to war with your lower desires, something like that. And it just struck me, and it kind of stuck with me it was like a thorn. I was like, oh, it just like got me, and I couldn't let go of it. And not until recently, that was a few years ago, but not until recently did I started to feel this calling within to look at what that meant for me. And it, for me, there's obviously things that I'm still pulled to do, or I know that, you know, I shouldn't drink as much coffee as I do, or, you know, these things that I can feel the pull of, like, starts in my mind, like I want that thing and I can't stop myself, and I just find myself going into the action of doing it. And I started to, you know, instead of like being a Viking about it, like I'm just going to go to war and try to slash that feeling or something, it was more like just a change in my perception. And I'm like, I know I'm going to fail at stopping this from happening. I have tried thousands of times to stop myself from doing this thing, and I can't. But at least I know that this can't be real. This cannot be the ultimate truth. This thing that is pulling me, that is like, it's like, that is, I can look at it just a slight bit and just be like, oh, I realize that that's not real. And it loses its allurement just a little bit, enough to have that little space between me, my thoughts, and the action. It's like, I'm not stopping, but I still, there's like that little bit, a little stepping stone that's really beautiful to me. So, but it's not, I think I tried at first just really keeping track of everything that was going on in my head. And it just was like, it was a war zone in my head to try to do that kind of thing, where I'm watching all my actions, and it's like, it's going to happen and I'm going to fail again and again. And that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. And I accept that. I like that. Jai Baba.
Yeah.
You know?
And, you know, I've gathered from Darwin and Erich and them that bring Baba into it as much as you can. You know, if you're going to do something, at least share it with Baba, bring him into it, you know, so that it's not something that's happening separate from Baba. You know, because, I mean, all this is him, so it's not like there are things that aren't him, you know. But yeah, sometime I'll tell you what Erich said to me about things like that.
I'd love to hear it sometime.
Yeah.
And Thea, go ahead.
I think what Alan was saying resonates very strongly with me. I feel like I've spent so much of my life struggling to simply get a moment of pause between when an event happens and my reaction fires. And really, in the last couple years, like 2-3 years, it's transitioned into this process of trying to have compassion for myself in my failings, because I have a great many of them. And so, like, recognizing that, like, I'm not always going to manage to act from what I would deem good or loving. Sometimes it's just going to happen. And that, like, if I'm going to adopt that posture of trying to be as loving as possible, that has to include myself in the process. And I'm still not. I mean, I had a conversation with Jeff last week, an extension of how I have managed to, at times, convince myself that absolutely everybody else in the world is redeemable except for me. So it is not a solved problem, but that softening that comes from the struggle breaks things up to the point where, like, I'll find something, you know, something will happen and I'll feel it in my body and I'll feel it in my psyche, and I will go there and think about what's, you know, kind of like let whatever's happening blossom and just be like, I don't know what else I've got for you, Baba, but this is what's going on. And sometimes it means I weep for a day. And sometimes it means that I feel exultant joy. And I think it means it's working, but I don't know. Like, I think there's another side of it that, like, sometimes when we can't fight something, it just has to build up until it breaks. And then, like, or, you know, whatever your attachment is extinguished. And then Baba's ready, like, then you can give it up to him when you're finally exhausted. Yeah, I think those are my main thoughts on that.
Beautiful, yeah. No, self-compassion is very important in this whole process. You know, it's not like a judgmental God up there, a disapproving father, you know. And compassion, self-compassion, I've found, and self-acceptance has got to be part of the picture. Yeah.
And Maurice.
Hi, yeah. Okay, Baba. So in terms of creating strategies, one of the things that, and kind of in an answer to something that was brought up earlier, is, for me, is seeking outside help in any areas that I either have a character challenge or an actual addiction. And there's so many free resources, and there's also, you know, Google anything, any challenge, and there's so many free resources on YouTube and everything, in 12-step programs. And the reason is because, for me, I really feel like it's a battle for my soul, because when I'm not going to do this, and I do it, it's very hard for me to be in contact with Baba, because my sanskaric stuff is so thick. And what I found in using these outside resources is that even if I'm processing a trigger, anger or a reaction to something, that I always ask at the end, you know, Baba, what's, you know, like, clear myself enough so that I can actually hear Baba or get that intuitive sense, or I'll do some writing, you know, Baba writing to me. And, you know, I mean, I'm from a family of addicts, so this stuff was either hardwired or sanskarically like who knows? But I've had so much stuff that I've had to work on, and really it's about, the freedom from that, and all of that stuff has been, go to spirit, get on my knees, Baba, help me with this. Or even if there's stuff that I want to do in my life now that I'm still resistant to, Baba, please help me with this. When I take it to Baba, there's a release, if I know something, and this is my strategy, right? It's like, there's still stuff, there's always going to be stuff, right? But if I take it to Baba, either help me with this or, help me to get clear on the perspective of this, there's always some sort of release, or, maybe it's a sanskaric unwinding, I don't know. But I have just had to have so much support for these other things that take me out of myself. And when I get more support like that, I'm more able to hear and connect with Baba more deeply, and have more compassion for myself, particularly if I'm connected with other people who have found a solution to what issue I have, even if they're on YouTube. Thanks.
Good, yeah. Getting a higher opinion.
Along the lines of what we were just talking about, in my life, internally, it's felt like there are not safe places to go. And what I found was there's dark, not safe places to go. So then what happened was dissociation, which makes it really hard because what we're trying to do is connect with Baba within. And then one thing that's helped me in all of that is Baba, but it's no matter what, there's one thing called the healing of the memories. And I can't go into any of those places without Baba. It's like I have to ask him to hold my hand and go with me and be with me. And that's one way to look at what needs to be looked at. I really can't do it without him. So I don't know. Anyway, Jai Baba.
Yeah, no, that wonderful, Paula. I know there was a great saint, Sri Aurobindo, basically said, you don't want to go into the darkness with a faulty flashlight.
Yeah, that's it. And one that makes it safe. Baba makes it safe.
Yeah.
He does. He takes you and protects you while you do it, and then you find out, oh, it's okay. But it's really only okay with him.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful.
And Ryan.
Yes, we started today with Baba talking about, or Darwin talking about always turning to the light, and the shadows will be behind you. And I think that is a way of speaking about acting from love, so that if you take Baba with you, then, and are always looking to his light, then whether your past action was good or bad, doesn't matter, it's behind you. And each thing is a new action springing from your effort to follow his lead and his love.
I just want to say one thing that I've found, and you may find this too, that all of my hang-ups and shortcomings and frailties and everything, they're contributing to a low self-esteem and, bad self-image. Baba has turned them into compassion for others, empathy for others. So if I hadn't done all those things that I wish I hadn't done, but it has helped me connect with so many more people than if I had lived a nice, straight and narrow life, believe me. Baba, that's the beautiful thing, that all these weaknesses that we have are going to turn into compassion for others. It's a beautiful thing about Baba. And, well, shall we have a few moments of silence here at the end?
Yes, that'd be great.
Jai Baba.
Jeff, I think what you said a moment ago was just beautiful. It was exquisite.
Who was that? Peter? Oh, Peter. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot I'm on video here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. I don't want to interrupt, but thank you for saying that. And can I just add, not only does it turn into compassion for others, but by Baba's grace, can it possibly be an inspiration for others to turn into an inspiration for others?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I was seeing it as like vaulting. My shortcomings make me vault deeper into Baba, like it flips me deeper each of these things, because I wouldn't have the opportunity to go deeper without them.
Yeah.
So you're saying that it helps you move in the spirit of things more?
I have an image of being like in a cave and going deeper by using like some kind of stick or something to vault over. I don't know what. It was the image that came.
You just gave me the image of like this is my ticket on the express train to Baba. without those shortcomings, I ain't getting on that train.
Well, here's I've quoted this before, but one of Mara's favorite quotes of Baba's is, "Seeds germinate in soft soil. I plant my seed of love in your weaknesses, not your strengths." And Mani quoted this, "I prayed to you for strength to carry out your work. You gave me weakness so I would depend on you."
Exactly. Thank you, Baba. So that's the secret to moving in the spirit with Baba. Total dependence. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Baba said he's the best businessman. He has all these assets and liabilities, and he's always turning his liabilities into assets.
Yep.
Sinners into saints.
Yeah. Yeah. I like what Darwin said there, that by doing this work, when, if we want to be here when he comes again, the more we clear out our consciousness, the more he'll be able to live through us and carry and live for him. So all this work we're doing, even in this lifetime, is important, but when he comes again, and we will definitely see him again if we're still around, that all this work will make it easier for him to live through us.
Jeff, it's Judy. Thank you so much for hosting and facilitating these. I find it so wonderful to feel a sense of Baba family. I've been here in my house for almost 10 weeks now, alone with only my kitty cat. And so these kind of gatherings really give me an affirmation of, yes, there's still an incredible family, Baba family out there. So anyway, I just find these kind of meetings, and this one in particular, really heartful and helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
And also, what you said, the last comment before our silence, it has also been my experience that kind of everything I've gone through, and especially mistakes that I've made and stumbles and all of this, have brought a much greater compassion for everybody else out there. Because, you know, we really truly are all in this big boat of life, and life in a human body. And we are fortunate to also have life consciously with Mayor Baba, but we're all in the same giant boat together.
Yeah.
And it's compassion is one of the great benefits.
Yeah, you can't say, well, the hole is in your side of the boat.
Right.
Maybe a little later on, Alan, I'll tell you an exchange I had with Erich.
Would you say, is that something that you can share with all of us, Jeff, right now?
Well, I mean, I can, but I mean, is there more comments that people want to make?
There's only 7 or less of us here.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I see about 25 or something. Anyway, okay. This was back in the mid 70s. And I was in Mandalay Hall, a bunch of us there. And I said to Erich, what if I went out last night to a party? It was a wild affair. I got drunk and I carried on. And I knew Baba wouldn't be that pleased with me, but I did it anyway. And now this morning, I'm hungover, I have a headache, I feel miserable. Now, I said to Erich, I don't want to burden Baba with what I did last night. I'm willing to suffer it through. I did it of my own choice. Does Baba want me to give him my hangover? And Erich said, he was on the other side of the room, he said, yes, give him your hangover. And the embarrassment of having such a meager gift to give your beloved will inspire you next time to have something more precious to offer.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So the embarrassment of having such a meager gift to give your beloved will inspire you next time to have something more precious to give him. Mm-hmm. Then I said, but give him, Erich said, give him whatever you're feeling deep down. And I said, but still, Erich, isn't that a burden to Baba? And Erich said, these words were emblazoned on my heart. It is a greater burden to Baba to withhold anything from him than to throw on him the worst of yourself. Mm-hmm. It is a greater burden to Baba to withhold anything from him than to throw on him the worst of yourself.
Wow.
So if you want that intimacy, you got to give him everything. Even if you have to close your eyes, give it. But that made such an impression. So Baba's got all my good, bad, and ugly over the years. And yeah. And it doesn't faze him one bit. Does that, Alan, does that kind of frame that a little bit?
Yeah, that's really helpful. I'm definitely going to digest that for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that because his love for us is so great that he just sees us as pure love? That's what he is. He sees us as love. He's not looking, he's not judging, he's not holding on to anything.
Yeah.
Your sanskar is your pride, your ego about things. We're the ones that hold on to it.
Yeah. No, it's exactly true.
But if we're holding on to it, then we're not allowing ourselves to move in spirit. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That creates a big blockage.
Okay. A veil, barrier between ourselves and him.
That's right. That's
He
right.
created us, so if he complains about his handiwork, what can you say?
The only problem I have with these kinds of things that I don't attend so often, Jeff and everybody, is so much words. And to me, I'm quiet, so I feel like I want to retreat and try to go back to my heart and just connect to him. And that's it. Or say his name, and it just wipes it all away. And it's just sort of, covers me once again in that peaceful feeling with him. The
Hey,
words
Jeff.
and all the thinking and everything just seems to, I don't know. I love it. I think it's wonderful because it helps everybody, but
Yeah. And people are experiencing, they're using words, but they're speaking about their inner experience.
that's true too, and that's very important.
Yeah.
Just like I'm doing mine. Okay, so Jay Baba, thank you all
Jay
for
Baba,
listening.
Marilyn.
Jeff, it's funny you mentioned this about the story about Eric, because the last week I have been really frustrated and reactive, and the discussion has been about people withholding in relationships, withholding. And I, would get frustrated. But if you withhold anything, even you're negative, you're blocking the intimacy in the relationship. And here you're talking about the story about Baba.
Yeah.
So it is kind of like, it is a truism. I mean, doing therapy with people, I know it certainly is. But when you bring it back to Baba, it hits you right, right in the face.
Yeah.
If you give him all, then you get past the embarrassment,
Yeah.
have a closer relationship. It's just, it opens it. Amazing.
Yeah. Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah. Perfect.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
The way I see it is the more you withhold from Baba, the more you cling to Maya, right? Because where else are you going to hide? You're going to hide in Maya. And the more you hide in Maya, the deeper you get pulled in. That's why I just don't withhold from Baba.
Yeah. Yeah. When you love, you share everything, the good, bad, and ugly. You can't necessarily do that with your fellow beings. Certainly. Thank God we got somebody you can do that with.
That's right.
How could you not share it with Baba? How can we not be sharing it with Baba? He sees everything. He knows everything. He is everything. It's a given.
Where are you going to hide?
But the actual doing it is important. Not just that, you know that he sees everything, but, Baba say, how are you? You don't say, well, Baba, you know everything. Why should I tell you how I feel? No, he wants you to say, I'm feeling this, Baba. So it's particularized. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I know Don Stevens, for example, would talk about how, I forgot what it was. I don't remember. It was something that happened in his life that was like really, he thought, well, Bob already knows it, and I don't need to tell him. But then he was in conversation with Baba one day, and Baba was like, wait, what was that you just said? And he was like, well, oh, this thing happened. And he was like, well, why didn't you tell me about that? And he was like, well, Baba, you know everything. Why do I need to tell you? And Baba was like really stern with him. Was like, you have to tell me these things if you want, just like talk to me, So I guess that's where he started saying things out loud to Baba, like even if it was just a whisper, he would just go in a corner and talk to Baba.
Yeah. It was a big decision about the oil company, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Spreading about, yeah.
You're talking about Don Stevens?
Yeah.
And he would say, Baba, this just happened. Please help me to rise above the illusory circumstances so that I could still continue to love you. I remember reading that in his book. It just never left me. And I don't read that much, but that I remember.
Good. Yeah. Good. Great quote.
Yeah.
Jeremy, you got any questions? Anything?
Hi, I just realized I was muted. What you all were talking about reminded me of a quote that I had posted on Facebook some weeks, no, actually a few months ago at this point, that of Baba that said, the great mistake you make is that you lift the burden from your head, but instead of placing it on the head of the one who willingly accepts it with all responsibility, you keep it hanging over you in the air, hesitating to give it lest you lose something valuable. Thus you neither bear the burden nor allow it to rest on the head of the one who wants it to be transferred, namely Baba. You keep it hanging between the two and place both under suspense, thereby aggravating your suffering. Either keep it yourself or give it up entirely.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, right.
So it just gets at, like, Baba wants us to give the good and the bad, like you all are saying. And that we shouldn't even necessarily like differentiate between the two.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I see David Defoe after many years from Oregon. Yeah. Yeah, all these are the, it's great that we share all these different, I mean, Darwin gives many different camera angles on the same one thing of turning to Baba in some way. All the different ways of doing it.
Meher Baba, Lord and friend, my beloved, till the end. Meher Baba, Lord and friend, my beloved, till the end. Meher Baba, Avatar, keeper of the key to my locked up heart. Open Mehra, the only one who really loves him as he should be loved. I sing their praises to the stars. Oh, Mehra, Meher, Meher Baba. Oh, Mehra, Meher, Meher Baba. How can I love you as you deserve? Oh, the fire inside me burns. How can I see you as you are? Will my eyes ever look that far? Oh, the glory of your name I cannot describe, I cannot explain. When I'm broken, all I do is say, Meher Baba, and then I write his rain. I sing your praises to the stars. Oh, Mehra, Meher, Meher Baba. 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 till the end. Meher Baba, Lord and friend, my beloved to the end. Meher Baba, Lord and friend, my beloved to the end. Oh, Meher Baba, Lord and friend, my beloved to the end. Child